Turn me up, Johnny.
I'm looking at you, you're staring at me before we even meet. The night is so calm, the wind through your hair, a cool island breeze. Everyone is around, I can't talk to you cause the music's too loud. Trying to get through the crowd when we finally speak, we've been talking for hours. I know that I want you, you hope this night won't end, but there's someone in the picture, and he's more than a friend. Talk to me, sweet, but we can't be. If I can't have you, what do you mean to me? What do you mean to me? I hear you say a lot of things to me, a lot of things that I can't repeat. I know if I can't have you, what do you mean to me? What do you mean to me? We talk too much with me, you just feel right. No, I'm troubled, but trouble's what you like. It's making me sad. We sit and we talk, we love and we laugh. Affected the pain, I'm thinking too hard, it just get me mad. We're saying something, but we can't listen. There's someone else in the picture. Talk to me, sweet, but we can't be. If I can't have you, what do you mean to me? What do you mean to me? I hear you say a lot of things to me, a lot of things that I can't repeat. I know if I can't have you, what do you mean to me? What do you mean to me? If I could go back, turn back time, I'd make sure that you don't catch my eye. Beautiful, beautiful, smile so wide. I love your face, your pretty hair in your eye. Now you're calling, calling, heart is breaking, breaking. I keep falling, falling. Please stop talking, talking. Talk to me, sweet, but we can't be. If I can't have you, what do you mean to me? What do you mean to me? I hear you say a lot of things to me, a lot of things that I can't repeat. I know if I can't have you, what do you mean to me? What do you mean to me? Look up at the sun and I smile, cause I see beauty in the sunrise. And I thank God for all the dark, sacred nights. People say just don't forget about our time when you wrong. No, I got you back at the right time. I'll show you love, how you gotta treat the world, and you'll get everything that you deserve. Cause it goes around in circles, circles, and it's always gonna work out, work out. Cause every time you give, you're gonna get it back. Need all that good energy, and that's a fact. Cause it goes around in circles, circles, yeah, it's always gonna work out, work out. Cause every time you give, you're gonna get it back. Only that good energy, and that's a fact, yeah. Yeah. Only lets me out, I'm smiling each and every day. Everything that doesn't kill makes me a stronger man. Make me who I am today. Everyone I met along the way. Talk about good times, good vibes, and positivity. Wishing my friends love and peace to all my enemies, trying to squash out all the beef. Cause I know that we can all agree, cause it goes around in circles, circles, and it's always gonna work out, work out. Cause every time you give, you're gonna get it back. Need all that good energy, and that's a fact. Cause it goes around in circles, circles, yeah, it's always gonna work out, work out. Cause every time you give, you're gonna get it back. Only that good energy, and that's a fact. Yeah, yeah.
It's real, 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 real,
Ooh, I like counting money when it's new. I still on my body, got me cool. Need to make a play. All I gotta say is never going back to minimum wage. True, I'm the lovest singer that you knew. Know we going up, me and the crew. Need to make a play. All I gotta say is never going back to minimum wage. I'ma go and get the bag, make it anywhere I can. Wanna spend it, get it back. So why not take a chance? In a new city, making waves. Got a high class, I wanna taste. Yeah, hey, glory, 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 hallelujah. Jazz making moves, doing it too. Moving to a bigger city, more lights. Everything is much bigger in life. Got a little money, now I don't know how to act. Got a new chick, don't know how long this will last. I'm a living legend in the making. Yeah, the world is mine just for the taking. Can't stop, I want it all. Money stacked from wall to wall. Ooh, I like counting money when it's blue. I saw on my body, got me cool. Need to make a play. All I gotta say is never going back to minimum wage. True, I'm the lovest singer that you knew. Know we going up, me and the crew. Need to make a play. All I gotta say is never going back to minimum wage. I'm one of the best, you know, if we being honest. Yeah, I'ma be great, and that to you I promise. Stepped on for the moment, but it won't be for long. Cause I'ma get my moment, I'll show you I'm not wrong. Me and CB and I lead the place, talking about how everything's gon' change. When we looking, got a million friends, we ain't going back to minimum wage. When I got money, fans is flocking. Rest can't even send us out my pocket, ayy. Highest fashion, look like bosses. Crew won't ever take no losses. Got a new diamond chain, started switching like AKs. Hopping over private plane, getting right up on the stage. Ooh, I like counting money when it's new. I saw on my body, got me cool. Need to make a play. All I gotta say is never going back to minimum wage. True, I'm the lovest singer that you knew. Know we going up, me and the crew. Need to make a play. All I gotta say is never going back to minimum wage. Ooh, I like counting money when it's new. I saw on my body, got me cool. Need to make a play. All I gotta say is never going back to minimum wage. True, I'm the lovest singer that you knew. Know we going up, me and the crew. Need to make a play. All I gotta say is never going back to minimum wage. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Ay, never going back to minimum wage. Never going back to minimum wage. Yeah, get real, yeah.
Hello, I'm Jalen Crosby, and this is our history. Healing, the process of making or becoming sound or healthy again. To heal, to make well, to cure. Healing is necessary for those who experience or have experienced trauma of any kind, mild or major, micro or macro aggressions. The Black community is a vessel for healing. Trauma within the black community has been present since the beginning, starting with over 400 years of bondage and moving into Jim Crow and flowing into present day where we can either recognize blatant racism or feel the sting of hidden racist remarks from our white counterparts. It is incredibly important that we as a community heal. We can do that through music, movies, TV, fashion, family, close friends, therapy, prayer. When you have a strong relationship with someone who has the same experiences, it's a beautiful thing and it can allow you to heal with time. It can be hard when every other day you see footage of a black human being being tortured or killed for no apparent reason. The feeling of bearing that strange fruit becomes overwhelming. But to know that you are not alone in that fight can cause you to strengthen and rise up. We must focus on our intelligence, our beauty, our light, our talent, our resilience, our ambition. That way we can glue pieces that were torn and fill up areas that were empty. We must remember that we are both magic and real.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Christian Hatcher.
My name is Alexis Simmons, and this is my story.
All right, everybody. Welcome back. This is my story is a talk show aimed at curving the narrative that is given to us by media about Black people. And today we'll be interviewing Miss Alexis Simmons. All right, Alexis, how are you tonight?
I'm good. A little tired, but I'm good. Alive.
All right. So, Alexis, give our audience an idea of who you are. If someone came up to you in the store and said, "Who are you?" or "What do you do? What's your name, Alexis?" So, like, who is Alexis Simmons?
I think so many things would come to mind, Christian, but I think the first thing I start spewing off is like identity. Like, I'm from Montgomery, Alabama originally, but I grew up in a Nigerian household. So I'm very loud, but I have this complex identity. But the biggest thing at this point in my life, I've realized is that I can't really control or tell people who I am. They just have to experience it.
Okay.
What I would want them to experience within the first 10 seconds of meeting me is like, this girl is full of love, right? Like, love. That's, I think, would be the biggest takeaway I want people to have on meeting me.
All right. So, full of love. Everybody keep that in mind. So, I feel like we should start, at the beginning. It's
right.
Start. So, Alexis, give us a general overview of what your childhood was like.
Okay. So I like to think that our life and childhood really begins in like the womb of our like mother, right? Because that's where life happens, in the womb. So my mom's originally from Lagos, Nigeria, and immigrated here, Montgomery, Alabama, to do school. And my dad is from a very small town in Montgomery, Alabama, called Enterprise. And so they met Montgomery, Alabama. I'm here, and my childhood was complex because I grew up in this Nigerian home with very strict principles and rules that didn't necessarily align with the Black Southern rules that were you kind of had to follow in Alabama. So I grew up with this duality. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I would say you have like any examples?
Yeah, so I just remember, so being Southern, you generally have to be quiet, right? Mannerisms. When you're at the grocery store, you're quieter. When you're in the line, my mother would go to the post office and be yelling to my aunt and uncles on the phone in her language, and everyone's like she's not supposed to be doing this. And I never understood how to be quiet. That's why I love theater so much, right? Because I was like, why is everyone so quiet? We should be loud. So I never understood the politics that went into being Southern or having Southern hospitality. It was vastly different. My mom didn't let me do sleepovers. That wasn't a thing growing up, right? Like, education came first, no social outings. So I didn't have this duality. I mean, I had to figure out this duality, how to be cool and fit in school, but then go home and eat fufu. Like, we only ever ate Nigerian food. So I never had McDonald's for years or Nutella or certain types of foods like Alfredo I didn't have till college or high school. So
it was really like me learning how to maneuver through American, specifically Southern culture as a child because my mom wasn't teaching me. So it was very interesting.
Interesting. Okay, well, you can give us. I kind of cut over you before. I'm sorry.
Oh, fine. That's how conversations work. You're supposed to build.
But so you had a difference in Southern culture. How about school life? What was that like?
So I was actually privileged in this aspect that I went to all magnet schools. So my elementary school was predominantly white, but it was the number one elementary school in Montgomery. Blue Ribbon School was awarded by the White House for reading the most books.
Oh,
And
heck,
then I went on to a middle school that was half performing arts, half academics. I was on the academic side, so I had to keep it 3.0, and then later switched over to the art side where you had two art specialties. Then I went about an hour and a half up the road to Birmingham, and I lived at the dorm at the Alabama School of Fine Arts. So I then went to a performing arts school where from 7:30 to 4:40 I was there. So 45-minute classes at 1:40, you would then move on to whatever specialty or art department that you were in, and you would spend hours there. Sometimes I was there till 11 p.m. rehearsing, and then I'd go upstairs to my dorm. So it was a very interesting, freeing experience I had growing up, and I'm grateful for it.
okay. So you said predominantly white schools and stuff like
Mhm.
that. This is a question that I actually ask so far all of my interviewees. Um, at what point did you realize, I guess, that you were Black?
Mm.
Did it happen in school? And do you understand what I mean when I say?
Yeah, I
Well,
have the moment. Like I have the moment. I was in the
I have
first.
mine.
Yeah, I want to hear about it too. I was in the first grade and I had this girl, her name is Caroline, and which is really interesting. She ended up going to Auburn, probably forgot who I was, like very different paths growing up Southern, black and white in Alabama. But anyway, Caroline Lee, we were the best of friends, and there was this other black girl named Brianna Miles. And me and Brianna had very different upbringings, right? Like she was new at the school. I had been here. I didn't even realize what race was, but I understood it in the context of learning about it, but I didn't understand how it applied to me. So she one day shared a journal and she was like, I'm so thankful for Martin Luther King because people like Alexis and Caroline can be friends. And that's when I turned to Caroline and I was like, Martin Luther King? Caroline? And I was like, you're white, I'm black. And like, it was at that moment, I was like, is this allowed? Like it was at that moment where and I think the girl had been calling me an Oreo. I think she was trying to get me to realize that I was black.
Mhm.
But so by her reading her journal aloud and me realizing, oh, like this is what Martin Luther King died for. So yeah.
Wow, that's early. I didn't
Yeah,
have mine
it
until
is.
third grade.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so that's okay. So I guess that's a perfect segue into the term Oreo.
Yeah.
I assume, but I don't want to assume too much. For those people that don't know what that means, could you explain what that term means?
So you gotta kind of think about it like the cookie. It's black on the outside, white on the inside. So a lot of times people apply it to black people who speak proper, right? Or who assimilate or almost speak white, which is incorrect, right? And
Mhm.
so it just is a term used like to reference black people.
Okay. So now that we have like the basic definition of what that is, what does that term mean to you? I guess like take away the definition of what they're trying to implant it to be, and tell us what Alexis hears when she hears, "Hey, you're an Oreo."
So it's really interesting because my brother's middle name is Nigerian and it's Oreo Lua.
Oh
So it was
wow.
this double thing edged sword for him because when he went to school, they were calling him Oreo because they saw his driver's license and it said Oreo Lua. And he went to this predominantly white this elite school in Montgomery, and they're like, oh, you're really an Oreo. Like your name is Oreo. So when I hear it, I go back to the thing of being, oh, I'm not only black, but I'm Nigerian, which is another like piece
Mhm.
of identity on top of
What I'm
blackness,
talking
right?
about.
Or ethnicity. It's complex.
Okay. Dang, that's that's crazy.
Yeah.
Uh Okay. All right. Then I know for me, I always did. Do you like the term Oreo
So I'm
reference?
not a fan of it because I think it applies. Like when you were younger, you kind of were like, "Oh, me, yeah," because you just see whiteness as this thing to aspire to. So now that you're called an Oreo, you're like, "Oh, I'm part of the cool club," not realizing like blackness is shouldn't be defined by the way that we speak. Like it's simply our race, right? So I'm not a fan of it at all. I think there's no such thing as talking proper because that dates back to white
Communication is
supremacy.
communication.
Yeah, like what is talking proper? Whiteness. So why is that good? Why is like it gets muddy? So I don't think that anybody can act or be white who is black. I think if you are born black, you are black.
Okay, that makes sense. So, a few more questions about school and like the young life.
Yeah.
In terms of when you went to classes, did you ever feel different than your peers? I know that you found out. I mean, like you were black really early, first grade. But did you ever feel that made you different from any of your peers, or that you couldn't do the same things that your peers could do those things? Not like, what was your experience in that nature?
So mine's different from I would say the typical Black American because once again that Nigerian aspect.
Hmm.
So I knew I was different in terms of ethnicity before anything. I wasn't even looking at it as like, oh, black, white, I'm different. I'm like, I'm African. I'm going to school smelling like fufu today. Like my mom made jollof rice and I really want pizza or this Alfredo thing my friend keeps talking about. My mom don't never take me to McDonald's. And so I'm not realizing like a lot of the problems I was kind of doing this thing and I got called out about it in high school where anytime I was louder, people would be like, "Oh, you're ghetto," and I'd be like, "No, I'm not ghetto. I'm Nigerian. Like I'm like this because I'm Nigerian." And someone was like, "Well, are you like kind of canceling your Black American brother or sister because by doing that you're saying no, I'm not like them." You know what I'm saying? So I was looking at being a Black American as something other, even though my dad is a Black American and I am technically half American. So it was weird, but I was like, the way that I identify is Nigerian. So it was a weird world for me because I felt like I was separated and isolated from Black and white people. And then when I went to go hang out with Nigerians, I wasn't fully Nigerian, so I didn't fit in there either. So I just have always kind of felt like an alien.
Okay. So I guess that changes anything about like the quote unquote normal Black American experience.
Yeah.
So a lot of the images that we grow up seeing as Black people are kind of like violent towards our people. Um, a lot of the stuff I specifically remember one of the first times turning on the television and or getting home from a mock trial competition and looking up and on the screen uh, lots of things were going on and like I was like, what happened, mom and dad? Like they're like they shot somebody. And I know for sure like that's all we are inundated with at this point, especially now. um, how did that affect you growing
Mm. So it like you said, it changes like the trajectory of things because I don't think it really hit just like it really didn't hit everyone else to the Trayvon Martin case. Like
up?
growing up, we have also experienced racism in a different light. My mom and I were taking senior pictures in high school, and I was dressed in like traditional Nigerian attire, and someone yelled, "Go back to Africa!" Or when my mom first came here, they were like, "Go back to Africa, N word," right? And so it's this weird thing of people also like racism, sexism, and just like the attitude we have towards immigrants as well. So for me, my mind was always focusing like, there's a lot of prejudice going on towards immigrants, or like this is the hustle Nigerian Americans have to face, or I hear about my mom's tough life in Africa and now we move here and people are just so rude to her. This isn't what was supposed to happen. So it wasn't until high school when I was kind of away from home, unlearning a lot of things, and I heard about the Trayvon Martin case where I was like, whoa, these things have been happening to me, but I've just kind of been reading them off as normal, right? The microaggressions, the, oh, like even the saying like the reason you two are friends is because Martin Luther King died, right? We couldn't just be children. So I don't know. It the deaths were what caused me to start unlearning things and start finding myself. Like if we were to find any type of light in them, I think a lot of Black Americans have come to terms with their identity, sadly, through Black death. So I think that was Trayvon Martin's death was a turning point for me in finding my own identity as a Black American, because that's what I am. Even if I identify as Nigerian, I'm still a Black American. So
Okay. So I'm obviously you just told us a couple of stories about
yeah.
your your experience with racism. And I don't want to have to bring up more of that if that makes any sense. But I would like to know in the sense of how you deal with that. You specifically, how do you cope with living in this land where when you identify with a place that's somewhere else and that you feel alien in, but at the same time it is your home, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And like what's even weird about that is people will ask you, well, have you been to Nigeria? And I'm like, no. And they're kind of like, so what are you? And I'm like, that's why things get so complicated. Because I have a lot of Nigerian mannerisms, but I'm a Black American. But to answer your question, the way that I deal with that is simply like through creativity. And even now, more so, I'm really on this big like healing movement, happiness movement, and like letting things go and learning that like there's a reason for that. So one cool thing when I graduated from college a year and a half ago, my Black American small town side of the family came and my Nigerian side of the family was there. And it was just like an explosion. And like, this is Black people as a whole, because a lot of people forget that when we took the enslaved people from Africa, Africa lost a big part of itself too. So it
Yeah.
was like, it's great to see that completion. So I kind of look at myself as like, the best of both worlds, a complete completion, and then I fuel it into my art or whatever I'm thinking about. I feel like I have this yin and yang perspective. So for a lot of my childhood, it was like, even in college, I'm like, I'm so misunderstood. No one understands. Like, this is just who I am. And I started just like channeling it like inward into my art and my creativity and realizing that is my purpose. All of these things that were causing tension and causing me harm is for my good and my advantage to flip. Like one day there will be a movie about this duality that people are going to be like, oh, this makes sense. Everything in life happens for a reason. So the way I deal with it now currently is knowing that like the only thing I can control is right now in this moment on this Zoom call, not yesterday or tomorrow. And none of these things matter in the grand scheme of things. And when they do trigger or hurt me, or whenever I experience these things, I'm able either to like speak up about it because I'm very vocal, or I'm able to come back, reflect, turn it into art, like just change the energy. So that's what I'm like big about doing now.
Well, let's talk about some of your art then.
Yeah.
What have you been working on lately?
So let me start out by saying it would be crazy of me not to even mention this first, but I teach fifth grade reading in Brownsville, Brooklyn, and I have been for the last year and a half. And it has completely changed my life. These kids have changed my entire life. And I think moving forward, making art, I keep a lot of them in mind. But recently, I've just been working on exploring like Black healing. And what I mean by that is, yes, we can be enraged and angry. In fact, I welcome that. I think anger is a form of therapy. And I think I have been working on trying to combine the two. So I'm applying to some things here and there. But in the grand scheme of things, I want to take all this hurt and pain that everyone has, and I want to heal creatively. Whether that be like writing a monologue about the Breonna Taylor situation, and then like just sitting with it and meditating and like sending good energy to whoever receives it, right? And of whatever religion, when you pray, you're setting an intention to something, right? So if I were to talk about it through the lens of Christianity, whatever art that I'm going to use, I'm going to pray over it and like be sure that it blesses whoever sees it, right? And things of that nature. So right now, my biggest thing is like finding myself, because I can't help or create art that helps people. And I find myself through helping my children, right? Through writing, through meditating. And then I'm thinking about in taking what's going on in the world, but not too much because that's when you get swayed, right? And then I'm mixing that all together in a pot and creating art, right? Whether that's writing monologues, I do a lot of things now where I like kind of oral journals. I want to work on a new piece with myself in terms of like what it looks like to be soft on a plus size dark skinned black woman, things of that nature. So I'm really just about right now letting my mind run free, but making sure it's all about healing. Like it's purposeful, not just for the sake of, hey, I want to make art, but hey, I want to make art to help you, that type of thing.
That makes sense.
Yeah, like the Janaea Eco
No.
effect. You know how she does the whole thing with the healing bowls, and she's like, "This album is gonna heal you." That's how I am. Like the
That
art that I'm
makes sense.
trying to produce. Yeah, the Janaea Eco effect.
So then, okay, let's remove ourselves then from like the serious nature of this interview.
Yeah.
We're gonna come back to it though. We're gonna
Okay.
come back to it. Uh, let's talk about Alexis just as a person then.
Okay.
What do you do for hobbies?
That's spicy. Um, I think it relates back to that. I like to do a lot of inner work, um, Christian, and I'm saying this to say like I think over the quarantine, the biggest thing I did was like get in touch with my own energy. I feel like I've never truly inhabited my body. So now I read a lot of meditation books that talk about the like importance of being present. Like I really enjoy like crystals. I have a little crystal collection. Like when I say my hobby is like being obsessed and like present in the world and being like, the colors are so beautiful, or like the red on your shirt is so vibrant. Like that is what I enjoy to doing, like living in the now. And so I am doing like a lot of activities that help me live in the now, whether that's coloring mandalas, whether that's reading books about being present, whether that's actually meditating, whether that's writing. I like to hang out with my kids. I like to scroll on TikTok. I like to laugh. I like to cry. I like to be human. I like to experience life. If COVID wasn't, a thing, I would be traveling. Like that's what I really want to do. So yeah.
So how's life been up in New York? I
Mhm.
pre-COVID and then post-COVID.
Yeah. So pre-COVID, amazing, fast pace. I really like set into myself even more. I think a lot of people, and I'm so excited for you to even experience this because you're so authentically in yourself. But a lot of people I know, and myself included, once they leave UA, have even college in general, not just UA, have authentically become themselves because they have no barriers to control where they should be. And so that's what I mean about I was able to walk in my purpose and find myself in New York. And also bringing it back to the whole being Southern, I felt like I never fit in. The people up here get me because they're from Haitian descent, Caribbean descent, right? Hispanic descent. Like they have this duality of being an American, but growing up in an immigrant household. So it's loud, it's bold, it's me. I am New York City. So I love everything about it. COVID came, and of course, like everyone else, it kind of shook things up. And I took it as a moment to return back to Alabama and make peace with Alabama because I had beef with the state as a whole, right? I felt like I was almost running from something. So I actually have spent the last couple of months back in Alabama, literally April through October. I just recently returned to New York. So I have spent a lot of time at home, coming to terms with my inner child, really becoming myself. So even though COVID is a tragedy, I have found some light within it. So yeah.
Did you ever talk to your parents about some of this stuff?
Oh, so I think that's how it happened. My mom, the best thing I ever did was realize that my parents are humans, right? A lot of us, you know how we are always like, I didn't choose to be here. I didn't choose to be here. But think about it, like maybe you actually did choose it. And maybe you actually did choose your parents to learn something. So that's where I got to thinking, and I was like, well, if I chose these two human beings, there must be a lesson here. And I started to then forgive them and then forgive myself. So I don't talk to them about it, but I started digging at their childhood and who they are as human beings, humanizing them because my mom, I've just seen as a strong Black woman. And then I was like, girl, what's been up with you? And that's when I started to realize, like she's human. I'm human. My father's human. And that's where I really started to become more reflective and grounded. They can tell something's up, but they're like, I don't know. And she's artsy, she likes the theater. So that's what they're I'm perfectly okay with that.
That's good. I'm happy for you, Alexis.
Thank you.
You seem a lot more chill than having all the stress
Yeah.
of being when you were down here and having to
Yeah.
deal with a lot of the stuff that's going on here.
Alabama does, like, not the university, but the state used to do this to me, and now I'm like, I need to go back home. I'm already like, when am I gonna go back? The green. So yeah,
Well, that's good.
yeah.
All right. Well, do you have any other things that you want to talk about? Because I mean, like you're
What was your story? You were. I forgot what you
about
said.
when I first found out I was Black.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So we were in the third grade, and at that time they like kind of separated some of us.
Where'd
And
you grow up? That's important context.
that's important. That is important. So I grew up in Hoover, Alabama. Uh,
Oh,
so also affluent.
yeah,
Also not too many Black people around in my classes.
yeah.
Um, I think my brother was like the first Black person or Black like kid in it. He was the only Black kid in his class. I'm pretty
Isn't
sure.
it crazy? I'm sorry to interrupt. My brother was in UK residency for emergency medicine, and apparently he's the first Black doctor to come through that program. And I'm like, it's crazy how this happens. You think this would have happened a while ago, and you're like, what?
And I mean, like
2020?
he wasn't the first, but I mean, to be the only one in your class is
Yeah, exactly.
it's just like yeah, and,
You're
and
the first and only of that class, though.
yeah, and luckily, like Hoover's become way more diverse,
It
a lot
has.
better
Yeah.
since I went through the whole kindergarten through 12th all in the same school system and stuff like that. So I've gotten to see the differences. But when I first realized I was Black, we were sitting there in the history class, and the teacher was just teaching about Native Americans and the indigenous peoples that were here. And they were teaching about how Christopher Columbus came over and just took the land. And for all of us just sitting there, we were like, wait, what? America took land? That doesn't jive well. And so I raised my hand and I was like, so we just took the land? And then one of my friends looked over at me and said, well, Christian, you didn't take the land.
Oh wow.
It just really
Oh
hit me.
wow. You were
I was
like,
just
wait,
like,
I'm not part of
wait
this
a second,
squad.
what?
You're
And
like,
my face
wait,
exploded.
I'm not part of the squad. Oh, you took me.
It was almost life-changing, but I still remember
Oh
that
wow.
moment vividly because it was like, wait a second. And I mean, obviously, like growing up, I mean, your parents tell you you're Black, you get all these different stories, which actually I want to ask you about. So, I mean, you came from a Nigerian mother, African American father, or American Black father. How does that work in terms of when you went out like late at night, or if you were about to go out? What were the talks that you got?
Oh, no way. No way. Like, I think so. I primarily grew up in the house with my mom. My dad lived in Montgomery. I saw him often. He was in my life. But
Got
in terms of like immediate influence, it was my mom. But my mom's very, like, the way she usually framed it was white people are Americans. So she'd be like, you don't hug Americans too much. You don't or like, America, they like to do, you're not going to sleep over the house. Like, that's her thing. Like, so, in America, they do a lot of, I won't have you with the Americans here. Like, that's what it is. But if she knew, like, I went to white school, and this is what I tell white people a lot of the times. Like, when it comes to them being uncomfortable, I was like, I had to grow up learning at UA around the white people who might kill me or say the N-word, or the white people that I can get loud with and be myself. I had to learn the different types of white people. So the white people have to learn, like, the Black people that you can ask questions to or not, right? So I think my mom would phrase it, but I knew. It's just I knew, which is why I was gonna say, isn't it crazy we have to have moments where we're like, wait, oh, you're not part of the land, or like MLK died for this. Like, when do white people ever have the, I'm white, and what does that look like to them? Like, are they like, cool, what? Like, it's crazy that we even have to have these talks and moments. But
and it's just weird that almost everybody that I've talked to ever has that moment.
Yes,
there is a moment that we all can speak about, and we still all remember it. And that's the crazy thing about, like, the fact that, like, it happened so long ago, but it's like, and some people it happens older. I think that those are success stories for parents,
right?
Because there's
but also harmful too.
It's so weird. It's a very weird conundrum to have.
Yeah, because a lot of educators have, well, a couple of coworkers and I have been having a conversation, like, we're super proud of our students because our students are saying they want to be advocates, and I teach fifth grade, but it's middle school, fifth through eighth grade, and then we're like, well, on the other hand, do we even want them to, like, it's kind of like their innocence is gone. They're all screaming Black Lives Matter, and it's like, yes, we're proud of them, but it on another hand, it's like,
yeah,
why?
There was a time, let's see, one of my cousins, their son came, I think he had started school, like he was in like the first or second grade, and we were over other cousins' house, and we were all talking, but they were like, yeah, he came home and he said, hey, mom and dad, I'm brown. And they were like, wait, what? No, you're just a kid. And so, like, that's at that point, like, knowing that division so early, I don't think there's a lot of studies done on that.
No, have you seen the video of the little kid who's playing basketball outside alone? He stops, he sees a cop car, he freezes, he runs behind his, like, parents' vehicle, waits for them to pass, and then he comes out, plays basketball again. And, like, you can hear him say something. I don't want to misquote it, but it's just the action of him seeing them freezing, stopping his ball, hiding, and then going back to playing. But it was like he was joyful. He was playing, saw them froze, trauma, like, hides, and then he's like, they're gone. He's back to being like, and you're like,
yeah, like, and that's the stuff that we have to teach our
kids. That learned action.
It's crazy.
Did
you ever have to do I don't think, well, did you ever have to do anything like that, or did you ever know anything like that?
I more so knew about it for my brother. So the magnet school we went to were predominantly white, but they weren't right, because my brother actually had, like, a white kid pee on him before. When my brother's 8 years older than me, but we went to the same elementary school and middle school, so it was still like the same history. Peed on him. He stayed in class. The guy who peed on him got to stay in class and learn. My mom was furious because she's like, you're leaving him in soggy clothes, the whole nine. He was helping, like, a white kid read, and the white kid's father comes over, grabs the book, and is like, we don't hang out with N-words. So obviously we've had the verbal harassment, I would call it.
The stereotypical.
Yeah, exactly.
Not even just like, but yeah, I can understand why you could have a little, not even just some hate towards. I could, just hearing that, that's not interesting.
And then it was like, on top of that, the microaggressions towards my mom, the immigrant, like, the accent, where you from? Like, my mom has a PhD, but people, black and white, would just talk to her like she was dumb. And that just caused a lot of, like, distaste in my mouth for people in general. Because I was like, okay, on one hand, we're black, but also black people are treating her rude. But then there is colorism within the African-American community. So dark-skinned black people get treated kind of awful anyway. Like, we just all need to be nicer to each other. That's what it all comes down to. Yin and yang, we need to be nicer to each other, show a little bit more love and compassion.
All right, so we have a little bit more time. I'm going to ask you a little bit about your experience at UA.
Okay.
That's where I saw you.
Yeah.
So, what would you say you gleaned from your experience at UA, just in general? Like, what was your experience there? And you don't have to do anything like that.
No. I think I am still processing that experience at UA. Okay. It's crazy. Like, a year and a half later, I'm like, this was wrong. I knew this was wrong in the time. I'm having dirty taste in my mouth for professors. I'm like, this person, the world. And like now I'm an educator myself, and I'm like, what you were doing was super messed up. Like it just is crazy. But I think that's what I learned from it though. So I always start off my story by being like, UA was my safety school. I was leaving Alabama at Alabama School of Fine Arts. If you were staying in state, you were looked at as not talented, and I was one of the talented ones. So I was going elsewhere, but my mom was like, "No, ma'am, we can't pay for any of these other schools." And I had dream schools. I was going to be in Minnesota, Cincinnati, New York. I was out of Alabama, and then womp womp womp. I was like, okay, I guess I'll go to the University of Alabama. I don't know anything about it. I don't like football. I'm just going. So I went there very reluctantly, was super sad my first year, met great friends, but theater was my thing. You know, I wasn't an MT at UA, and like when you're not an MT, you're not taken seriously. And I was like, well, they're not gonna take me seriously. I'm not gonna take them seriously. Sought out speech and debate. That's where I really got to be creative. But I think I learned a lot about people. I low key learned a lot about art because the theater department, that was my thing, that was my forte. I think I didn't realize this until this moment. This is an epiphany. But I think I had a really good grasp of theater. I had been doing it since I was 6. I went to a performing arts school, like got to perform in amazing theaters, summer programs with Alabama Shakespeare Festival. Then I went to UA and I was like, I had to still find a creative outlet. So I sought it through communications. And there was when I was able to then kind of take an activist route from it, where I can kind of analyze and study it more, study art more, right? I can understand humans more. I can look at humans in art rather being the human in art in the theater department. That makes sense. Communications allowed me to study humans in the art. Theater allows me to be the human in the art, right? There's two different things, the study of and then the actual action. So in the study of, I got to do a lot of things where I was like reimagining Shakespeare through the lens of like um, a Black utopia. When I won my senior, not my senior thing, when I won my poetry championship, I took Lemonade and revamped it into this very like long monologue about Black America. I mean, Black women in America, how America cheats on us, but we like are so devoted to America. So I was able to just look at art from this analytical perspective, and that's what changed me. So if anything, I really learned how to make lemons out of lemonade, pun intended, right? UA taught me that. I had to take this situation I hated, and I found lifelong friends. I found lifelong organizations. Like even the theater department that I had so much distaste for taught me so much, right? There's still so many things I do take away. So I'm always like, blah, but then I'm like, about UA. Like low key, I'm really like, but then I'm like, it's this weird duality with me. But what I took away was you are put in every situation for a reason. So you can't look at it like, I hate being here. You have to find the lemonade. You have to make the lemonade. And I've learned so much about like racism. Like I learned so much and what it breaks down to and boils down to. I learned so much about myself. So I wouldn't trade those 4 years for the world. Would I go back and do it again? Hell no. But would I trade them? Absolutely not.
All right. So, last question before we close out with our final questions. So, I'm going to be a little selfish here because I haven't really gotten to talk to a lot of the people that were part of Black Enough, except for like Z. And that's
Yeah.
what explain to the audience in your own words what you thought Black Enough was. And I want to know like what you took away from that experience.
Yeah. So Black Enough, like, is this concept by one of my amazing friends, mentors, coaches, poet extraordinaire. Oh, I miss him. Jamon Hill, and his trusted advisor, partner, Eric Marvel. And he originally came to me because he was like, you do theater, you got theater connections, let's do this. But he low-key sparked something inside of me. Like as I've been reflecting, like I played a small, like busy, like struggling with a lot of things senior year. I was a very sad individual. But I look back and like Black Enough is a light because I've created a website and like I had an excerpt from Black Enough on it. And I was like, it's important to me because one, I knew I already loved to direct as a human, but then watching Jamon do this, I'm like, oh, like I love to do this. I actually got to put it in action. I would say it was the first thing I got to put in action, so I know it's something I love, and honestly, I prefer it over acting. So I really got to put that into action in whatever small role that I played, and I'm forever grateful for that.
Large role, very
Yeah,
large role.
yeah, large, but also the grand scheme of things where it is gone, right? Like now the Flourish is an organization, Black Enough is an organization. Like it's beautiful to see what it has branched out to become. And then every time, oftentimes I'll hear people say things like, "Oh, they told me I wasn't black enough," and I'll chuckle. Black enough has become this thing where I think of. DJ Envy on the Breakfast Club was talking about how BET told him he wasn't black enough, and I was like, I would love to talk to Jamon Christian and Eric about this right now. Crazy stuff. So I will forever think about that. I still have a playlist on my phone called Black Enough. But to answer your question, it was the first real thing that allowed me to really apply my directing skills. And a lot of people don't get that privilege to do that. That is a privilege and an honor to get to do that, and it be such amazing work. It was also I looked around and everyone was black, right? Or at least a person of color. And I know in the future, if I ever have a company, that it's going to be black people, right? Or people of color and women. So it gave me the privilege to do things a lot of people aren't allowed to do or experience, for sure.
You have no idea how happy that makes me.
Yeah.
So, all right, we're gonna finally ask our last two questions. For those that haven't seen before, I personally have the view that to change the narrative, we have to show that Black people are not a people of suffering. We are people that have suffered. We're just people. And I like to end our shows with a little bit of happiness, considering we have enough crap going on in the world. And so, Alexis, what's your happy place? What's your joyful place? What's the happiest you've ever been?
So I'm gonna say this, and like part of it is like, girl, do you really mean this? But when you say things, I think that you are putting it out there. And the happiest I've ever been is any moment that I'm awake and alive. So right now, Christian, this is the happiest I've ever been. You know why? Because we're breathing, we're talking about it, and I know that's such a meta response, but I'm really big now about thinking about it in terms of this. 5 minutes ago, even when we started this interview, it no longer exists. Tomorrow doesn't actually exist, right? We hope that it does, but it doesn't actually exist right now. So the happiest that I've been is right now in this moment. And that's my meta Alexis. But if you're like, girl, get off your little high horse, the happiest I am happiest when I am performing or creating art, because I feel like that's a meditation. You leave and go somewhere when you hear that pre-show music and you're like, how you just feel all the warm jitters. That is, I'm getting happy talking about it, elated, like chills. Or even when you're in the audience about to watch it. You know why? Because in that moment, everyone is being present. No one's on Twitter. No one's thinking about Trump unless they're saying the lines, talking about Trump, right? Or whatever political candidate, whatever it's going on in today's media, we're all right here in this moment. Even if we're talking about something tragic, right here in the moment on stage, we are present in that. And that's what I love, to be present. So I'm happiest when I'm present, whether that be creating art, whether that be right now, living in it, talking about it, or whether that just be on stage or even directing, because that's a very moment to moment thing. You just did this right here, let's redirect it to this. So yeah, meta, but that's my answer.
Great answer. And our final question for tonight. What do you want to have people take away from this interview?
Be happy, be present. Take care of yourself, because we can't fight these battles and all these things, can't show up to vote, can't do all these things if we are not right? If we're not taking care of ourselves. If I'm too sick to figure out the ballot information, right? Like you have to take care of yourself to get up and even go to vote, to be able to, no, you can request a ballot. That's super quick. Go vote. But still, like you have to take care of yourself at the core to even do your civic duty is what I'm trying to say. So I think the biggest thing to take away is that you should be taking care of yourself. Whatever you need to be doing and create. Everyone's creative, even mathematicians. Math is a creative art form. It's meditative. So do something for yourself. That's the biggest thing. And like, be nice to everyone. We're all having a hard time. It's a pandemic. A pandemic. So yeah, take care of yourself and be nice. Because if we're all nice, I just feel like things will just go a lot smoother.
Thank you, Alexis.
You're welcome.
All right. So for those finally that don't know, the organization that is producing this is Flourish. I created that organization over at there is a Flourish, Alabama, and that came from the project Black Enough. It's always very happy with that. But this type of program, these talks are aimed at changing the narrative of the way that we view Black people. Hopefully they are changing it in a sense of that you are viewing us as people and breaking down those stereotypes. If you are a Black person that wants to either be interviewed or have your own story that you want to tell and maybe can't be interviewed by me, you can send in your own story soon. We're going to open up our own website and we're planning on calling it This Is Our Story. And it's just going to be a database of different Black people telling their stories. And we might even branch out to other people of color later. But I don't know if I'll be in charge of that because I can only tell my story as a Black person and help other Black people tell their stories. But until then, thank you for coming here to help us educate, elevate, and empower. I'm Christian Hatcher.
I'm Alexis Simmons.
And this was her story. Thank you. See you next time.